Hey guys, this video will blow your mind. There has been a new chess bot on the basis of Leela, one of the top chess engines in the world, that is destroying even the top players in the world with knight odds. So top GMs play against it with an extra knight and get crushed. And recently there's been a match online between this Leela knight odds bot and grandmaster awonder Liang, one of the strongest chess players in the world. I think he's number 42 in the world currently, and he's young. He's probably even going to make it even higher on the list. He was in contention for the first prize in the US Championships this year, up until the very end. Very strong player. And he faced this engine, and it was a brutal fight. You're going to enjoy this. Every game in this video is crazy, but each game gets crazier and crazier. And at the end, I'll tell you the results of this match. Okay, so in the first game, the bot starts with knight c3, and we transpose into some kind of a Jobava-London system, but there is no knight on g1, so there is no knight f3 to follow. Black is just straight up winning with an extra knight. You might remember, by the way, I actually played against Stockfish. I'm not a GM, I'm just a candidate master. And I defeated Stockfish with an extra knight because Stockfish, when it plays against humans with odds, tries to make objectively the best moves. But this bot, Leela Knight Odds, tries to muddy the waters, tries to as Mikhail Tal, world chess champion, said, bring the opponent into the dark forest where 2 + 2 = 5. So it tries to create some chaos on the board, which is exactly what you should do if you are playing down material. And Leela has mastered this art. At the beginning, when this bot emerged, it was not as strong as it is now. For example, Grandmaster David Navarro played a match against it and defeated it, even though Navarro lost several games. But this one is a monster. So the first game is a rapid game. So we see kind of a standard position for the Jobava-London, except for the fact that black is up a knight. Obviously, Grandmaster Liang is playing with the black pieces, because if you have odds games, usually the side given odds is playing with the white pieces. So knight c6, standard development. Bishop g4 is a move that is attacking this rook, so f3 is blocking, logical. Neither side has made any mistake or inaccuracy up until this point. Queen e3 is a subtle maneuver, and probably the bot wants to put the bishop here. Bishop g6, rerouting, bishop d3 now. And yeah, it's a normal position. Black finishes development, white moves the king out of the way. And we get the spin on the f6 knight, and now knight takes d5 is threatened because this is also a pin, so black has to do something about it. Black first trades the bishop, because if you are up material you should trade, and now bishop e7. Up until this moment you might be thinking, what's this all fuss about? I don't see anything too special about this Leela Knight's odds. Just trading pieces. Grandmaster Liang is just confidently simplifying the position, and he will win the game. Well, let's see what happens next. So queen g1. This is such a strange move. Queen g1. So putting the queen here, even like it could be understood if the king of black castles short, then this file could get opened up later on, g4, h4, h5, but queen g1 now, this is very subtle, very computerish. So queen c7, okay, g4, still black is winning. You can see by the evil bar, black has done nothing wrong. Black castles lone, because black doesn't want to get crushed, steamrolled on the king side, obviously, with all these pawns. Now bishop c1 is a nice retreating move, overprotecting the king and freeing squares for the pawn storm. King b8 sidestepping, also logical. Now the knight reroutes, king a8. By the way, you might think what a weird move, king a8, but it's a very common move in positions with a long castle, because the king sidesteps everything, and also bishop f4 sometimes can be annoying with a pin, so king a8 is a good move. Queen g2, some subtle maneuvers by the bot. Now e5. Black breaks in the center because black wants to do something. Passively waiting is not a good strategy against the bot. Awonder is playing perfect chess, or almost perfect chess up until this moment. Takes. Now the rook is hanging. Where will the rook go? Rook c3. A weird square for the rook, but there is an idea of attacking the queen. Knight draws back, and now knight d4 utilizes the spin. Now some craziness emerges. So bishop b4 attacks the rook. Knight takes c6, ignores the threat on the rook, because if you take here, then I'll take here. And actually it's good for black, but it's scary to go into such complications against the bot. So black just takes the knight. The drawback of this is the fact that now this a6 pawn no longer has any defender, and the king is getting weaker on a8. But still, we are up a piece. Rook b3. Also, pay attention how many seconds leela spends per move. I think like a couple of seconds per move, because it's programmed to just play fast, put pressure on the human opponent, and it's 10 plus 5, I guess, so 5 seconds increment per move in this game. So bishop c5, still confidently, Awonder is not getting outplayed. g5. Now the knight is hanging, the knight has to retreat. Queen e2, probably attacks this pawn. This is the obvious idea. So king a7 defends it. f4. Now the pawns start marching forward. Even though the king is not on the king side, but leela, which is similar to AlphaZero, you might have heard of this neural network. Leela really likes taking space and pushing the pawns to gain spatial advantage, which is something we humans should learn from it. And actually, many humans have learned from these engines, especially I think both Gukesh and Dean Liren in their press conference said that they have been heavily influenced by Matthew Sandler's book on AlphaZero's style of play. And Magnus also has said that he has learned some new things about chess from it. So shout out to Matthew, because he was also commentating on this match, and I really like what he's doing. So g6, by the way, if I should invite him on the podcast to drop a comment. So g6, logical move, preventing f5. So what does leela do? f5, nonetheless. It just pushes the pawns. Here is where the fun starts. So, okay, what if you take? Well, you can take actually, but look at those 3 pawns. They are no longer protecting each other. They are just pawn islands, and it will be much easier for white to take them one by one. So instead, rook e8 attacks the queen, logical move. Queen draws back, and now bishop b6. Well, such a cagey approach, blocking this file. Maybe Awonder wants to put the knight here to attack the rook. Rook f1. The rook gets activated. Knight c5 attacks the rook. Rook goes to h3. This is not obvious move. When the rook is standing on b3 and it gets attacked, most people, especially in rapid or in blitz, they would not think about going to h3. This is what they call full board awareness by the engine. So the engine doesn't forget anything, doesn't neglect a single fact. So it's vigilant. It's not like forgiven if you forget about something. So it's attacking this pawn, and now the only way to defend the pawn is to go rook h8, defending it from behind. But it's such a passive move, and humanly speaking, it's not a move you want to make. Rook h6, for example, could be next, then the rook f3, rook h3, and putting pressure on h7. The engine says it's fine, it's fine. You should just protect your pawn and continue playing, but humanly speaking, it's not a move that my coach would approve of, for example, and any decent coach. So instead, black goes for activity, knight e4. And leela is not against taking a pawn. Now leela has 1 pawn against the knight. Still, the position is completely winning for black. Black has now this great octopus knight controlling many squares, and the position could get opened up. The b file, for example, there could be some attacks on the king, even though currently the d4 pawn square is controlled. But 1 pawn is all leela needs to turn the tides in the game. Watch this. Rook d8, defending this rank because there was a threat of taking here, and this is pinned. So rook d7, h4. Now the pawns are rolling. Queen b7, probably Awonder wants to put pressure like this. takes, h5. The pawns are rolling, the pawns are marching. You should know this rule. If you don't, then learn it. With every step the pawn makes, it becomes more powerful and more valuable. And if you have a pawn on the 7th rank, for example, somewhere here, and if you're white, this pawn is already worth at least a knight or a bishop in very many cases. Sometimes even it's worth a rook. So yeah, white is just marching. g6. White is not even taking this pawn. It's not in a rush. It wants to go g6, and now there is a threat of going rook f7, pinning the queen, and yeah, it's still winning for black, but it's getting a little bit unpleasant. You should like exercise caution now. Rook e7, nice prophylaxis. Bishop h6. Now it's not comfortable to play this position if you are black, even though you are awonder Liang, who is a very, very strong grandmaster. But you could see that he's not comfortable. He's spending a lot of time. He's now down to 3 minutes out of the allotted 10. What to do? Queen g4. He wants to exchange material. If you trade off material, at least you won't get checkmated. So what does white do? Ignore this threat of the queen trade. Whatever, trade queens. I'm fine going into an endgame down a piece, says leela knight's odds. So takes, rook e6 attacks the pawn, so the pawn goes forward, but rook g6 stops its advancement for the time being, and still black is winning, but the position is very imbalanced. And it's not easy to win this actually, because of the fact that this pawn is so strong. You want to go bishop d4 and attack it 2 times and win this pawn, but you cannot go bishop d4 because the rook is here. Or like at least you could have, because there is rook g1, but c4, now there is no longer this back rank issues. And if you take this pawn, well, of course you can, but then the rook could infiltrate and it could get very unpleasant. So instead, black goes d4, which is also a move. Still black is winning. a4. Now white wants to go a5, and this bishop will no longer defend this pawn if this happens. So king b7, a5. Black decides to trade these pawns, okay, but now white gets even more activity. White gets the opportunity to go here, for example. Also the knight is hanging. And once the knight goes to g3, this is probably the only mistake in the whole game that awonder makes. One mistake is all it takes. Now it's equal. Now it's equal, and the bot is playing for a win. Rook d7 check. You drop back. Rook d6. Great move. If I take here, then white will queen. So white cannot take. Black cannot take. Instead, black goes rook g4. But now a pawn on c6 falls. Check. Now rook h6 wants to go rook h8 and queen and win the game. So knight f5 attacks the rook. But now I take this pawn. And suddenly we see this shish kebab here. So one of the minor pieces of black will die. And the bishop dies. And now it's an extra pawn for white. Suddenly. All of a sudden. Knight e6. The bishop retreats. Thankfully for awonder, he manages to win back the pawn. And then he holds this endgame, even though leela still is playing for a win, and probably leela could have won this against a weaker opponent, but it's not too difficult to defend this. If white takes here, then I'll just take, and even though white is up a pawn, this is a theoretically drawn, easily drawn endgame. Even I would be able to draw this against leela. So this is game 1, and game 1 ends in a draw. They make some more moves, but there is like a threefold repetition after some moves, or where leela is trying to trick somehow the grandmaster, but they exchange and they make a draw. So first game is a draw. This is like a very good result, because you will see the other games and you will say that this is one of the best games by awonder in this match. Quick disclaimer, I think awonder is brilliant. This is by no means like an attempt to diminish his chess talent. It's just very, very difficult to play against engines. Okay, game 2. Now there is no b1 knight for white. Again, down a knight, but the position is a little bit different. So we have knight f3, and we have some kind of also a London system, but not a Jabava London, because there is no knight to be put on c3, which is the Jabava London opening. So knight e5, now black develops normally, and now g4 is a bit unpleasant. So if you take on e5, for example, I'll take your bishop, and white will have a 2 bishops advantage. Otherwise, if white goes here, then there is h4, and h5 is threatened to win this bishop, and if you go, for example, h5 here, then I'll take like this, and the pawn structure will be ruined. This is a very standard opening trap. So instead of retreating here, awonder decides to give up the bishop for the knight, and this gives leela some imbalance to use. Let's see how leela uses it. By the way, this is a game where already they are playing 3+2 blitz, I think. So it's a different situation, trickier for the human player because you make more mistakes usually in blitz. So bishop g3, subtle move. White wants to go f4. Of course, white does not want to trade the bishops because white enjoys the 2 bishops advantage. Instead, first c4, chipping at the center, and now a3, probably b4 is on the cards, and f4 now. So why didn't awonder take here? Because that would have allowed white to open up the h file, which is not good. So, but now black is no longer able to take on g3. Queen f7, trying to maneuver. Still, the position is absolutely winning for black. Of course, black is up a minor piece, but there is a very annoying pressure and attack that you will see how the engine will utilize it. So bishop d3, this is an unopposed, uncontested light squared bishop, and it is a monster. You will see it play a role further in the game. So knight e4, trying to kill this bishop. Black is of course fine with spoiling the structure, the pawn structure, at the cost of this minor disturbance. You will kill the bishop. That's a very good trade for black. Of course, white does not go for this. Instead, white goes for a killer attack. This is the idea of white, to destroy the monarch of black. So c5 now, kicks the bishop. Now queen c2. Now I can trade the bishop for the knight and win a pawn, which would be not that bad. So queen f5, trying to hold this glue together. Long castles. Okay, we have opposite side castling, and opposite side castling favors the attacking side, and the side that's attacking is of course white. First of all, there is a useful prophylaxis. The king is better positioned on b1 than c1 in such positions. Now black tries to reroute the knight, probably put it on g6 or I don't know where. Rook c1, very computerish move, by the way. Rook c1, you are attacking here. You should put your rooks on f1 and g1, or maybe h1 and g1, but instead rook c1, very subtle move, very interesting. c6, now queen g2. Now you will see some computer chess, guys. You will be impressed. So b5, black is trying to attack on the queen side, of course, because this is where white's king is positioned. Bishop e1 is a clever move, controlling lots of squares. Also, the bishop is opposite the enemy knight, and it's restricting its movement. Okay, a5. Black is still winning. Black has an extra piece and is going to attack white, but white is going to attack black. h4. Now the pawn is rolling. Queen h5, trying to blockade this pawn. The queen is not a good blockading piece, but still. So here, if Stockfish played this game, Stockfish would just trade and take the pawn. But maybe this is not the best strategy in Leela's view, because queen f5 and the queens will get traded. And it's not chaos, it's not attack, it's simplification. So objectively, these may be the best moves, but Leela does not make objectively best moves. Leela makes moves that will most likely bring victory against a human, because you are mere mortal, you are just made of flesh. You remember this scene from The Matrix where I think Agent Smith says to Neo, you are only human. So instead of making objectively the best moves, Leela makes subjectively best moves, which is attacks. Rook h1. So I don't know what will happen, but I know that it will be unpleasant. Well, actually, I know what will happen. I watched this match. So rook h3. This maneuver, I don't know why Leela does this. Maybe something like this, but it's going to be something unpleasant. Now queen h1, a weird spot for the queen, but h5 is threatened. Again, queen h5 tries to block. Queen g2. Queen g6, queen h1, and now awonder in a winning position decides, you know what, I'm not going to win this game. This is too hard. Yes, I'm up a piece, but I'm getting attacked, I'm getting steamrolled, I'm getting crushed. I'm fine with a draw. I'm fine with a threefold repetition. And he goes queen h5, which is given a double question mark by Stockfish, because Stockfish says that white will just go queen g2, and this will be a threefold repetition and a draw. But you know what Leela does? It doesn't take a draw. It doesn't take a draw down a whole knight, because it says, I'm playing just a mere mortal. I will crush him. I don't need this extra piece. And Leela goes king a2, hiding the king. Now it's back to winning for black, but in order to win, you have to be very precise. So g6, okay, g6 is a logical move. Probably the knight will go to f5. Okay, queen h2, I don't understand this move, but probably there is some idea behind it. Bishop g7, okay, logical. The rook is now putting some pressure, okay. Bishop b4. Bishop b4 just seals the position to prevent any like counterplay by black, probably. Knight g8, rerouting, probably wants to go here or here. Rook g1. Now the rooks are where they should be, according to normal understanding of chess. This I can understand. Knight f6, rotating, and suddenly this is an inaccuracy, because now black can do something crazy, white can do something crazy. So first attack the queen, and now h5. This is not crazy, this is logical, very, very logical move. White wants to open up this file. So here, king g8 is a great move. Sidestepping this, because this was a pin. Rook h4. What is this move? What is it for? King f7, king tries to run. Bishop e1. Now some maneuver back and forth. Bishop b4, bishop e1. What is it? Okay, rook g8, rook g5. And suddenly, objectively, even Stockfish says that black is no longer winning. Black will be able to hold this if black makes a series of only moves. Okay, first take the rook is the first line of the engine. Now, black has to find the only move. If I gave you like 10 minutes to think about this position, well, if you are a master or a grandmaster, maybe you might have seen the idea that black needs to implement. There is only one move that doesn't lose here for black, and it is e5. And it is very crazy, and you have to calculate long lines to understand why it is the only move. Awonder doesn't have like 10 minutes. He's playing blitz, and he makes a human move. He goes rook c8. He understands that he cannot go, for example, knight e4, because rook f4 will pin and win the queen. So instead, he goes for, I don't know, he goes with the rook here to free the square for the king. I don't know, maybe he panics. He goes rook c8, and white is winning. Why? Because white takes the knight, and if you take the queen, this will be a pin, so obviously you cannot take. And if you take with the bishop, still this will be a pin. And if you remove your queen, you get taken, and awonder resigns in this position, because he is crushed. If he takes back by the queen, then bishop h5 will win the queen. If he takes by the pawn, there is mate in 7, queen h7 check, and mate in attack will follow. So he just got crushed in like 5 moves in a completely like winning position. Before this, he was winning. In this position, he was winning. Now, in 2 moves, he got a losing position. Now he is already losing. How did this happen? This is very, very peculiar. Very interesting, as Vladimir Kravnik would say. Okay, let's take a look at the third game, which is even crazier. And then I'll tell you the results of the match. So Leela is playing without the g1 knight, and it's another blitz game. So now we have e4, e5. We have some kind of an Italian game or 2 knights. And now d4, some kind of like gambit here by white. Knight d5. Very, very interesting stuff. So d6, castles, and we get this position where white is down a full minor piece and a pawn. So white has even sacrificed one pawn in addition to the odds given initially. But white has some initiative. Bishop f4. This is all normal. Black is playing fantastic chess, not giving any hope to white for white to win immediately. But white is a 4000 rated computer. I don't know the exact rating. It's given here as 2000, but it's definitely not 2000. So yeah, you might guess where this is headed. So both sides finish development. Still, it's completely great for black. Black is enjoying a great position. Now black tries to push, because if you are up a piece, you have to do something to win. If you just stand idly and do nothing, you will not win. You will make a draw at the very best. So they trade pawns. Still, black is up 4 points of material. Black trades. Now b4. An interesting in-between move. So b4 is kicking this knight, and this knight is no longer defending this pawn. Actually, the engine says, stockfish, my stockfish says that you should sack the knight and take here now. And this is completely winning for black, but of course it's easy to do this if you see the lines by stockfish. Humanly speaking, of course, you want to be safe. You drop back. Now you go knight g5. Rook h4, another weird maneuver by the engine. What is this rook doing here? Obviously, it's putting pressure on the h-file, but it's very clumsy. Humans would think twice before doing this move, but engines know better. Okay, h5, logical, a4, rook c8, just in case, defending this pawn. b5 takes, and now knight e5. Now it is looking good for black, because black will trade off some pieces, probably this bishop, and this rook is very clumsy, and this is a threat also, takes, and it will not end well for white. So how will the all-powerful engine defend this? The engine gives up the bishop. Now these bishops get traded, and the g7 pawn gets taken. Okay, check, in between check. The king is in trouble. It has to sidestep. And now, when the dust settles, black is still up a full knight, but black's king is feeling a little bit vulnerable, and black is playing against an engine. Let me remind you that. And you can guess that there will be unpleasant things happening now. So rook e2. Black is fighting like a beast, by the way. So awonder is fighting like a beast. Awonder needs to win this game. He wants, because he has lost a bunch of games. Up until that point, he is trailing behind in the match significantly, and he needs a win. And he wants to checkmate white, obviously. There are various threats. For example, knight takes h3 is a threat, with queen g4, queen g2 to follow. So what will white do? White will play f4. And now knight takes h3 will fail to queen h3. The queen will defend the g2 pawn. So the knight has to drop back. Now rook g4. Now suddenly this rook gets a very active role. It attacks, it protects at the same time, as in the famous meme. So queen f6. Now queen g3. Creating some kind of a battery on this file. Will it bring some good results to white? Let's see. Rook e8, doubling up. Still, awonder is playing brilliant chess. Awonder is controlling everything, not letting it slip. The advantage is winning for black. Rook g6 attacks the queen. And now there is just one move to keep the winning advantage for black. And awonder doesn't find it. The only move is queen f5. And awonder plays queen b2, which is a logical move. I think it's the most, humanly speaking, logical move. You put more pressure there. How could it be bad? You are controlling the long diagonal, so there is no queen c3 check. So why is it back to equal now? Well, because there is a crazy move here. It's very hard to guess. You can stop the video and try to guess what white does here. b6. So you are attacking the king on the king side. But suddenly you just push the pawn on the queen side, and it can be taken in two different ways, by the queen and by the pawn, but both ways do not work, actually. If you take by the queen, then queen c3 will fall on your head, like the sword of Damocles, I think, in the Greek mythology. So it's not good. And if you take by the pawn, then the rook d to d6 will seal the deal, and rook h6 is threatened, and it will be a checkmate. And if you take this rook, then rook h6 is checkmate. So this is crazy stuff. b6. This is so beautiful and so otherworldly. And there are some moves to hold the balance here for black, but the best black can hope for is a draw here. And unfortunately, awonder makes an inaccuracy here. He goes rook takes g2. He says, I've had enough. I'm simplifying the position. And the idea of awonder is that, of course, he doesn't just give up a rook. He goes rook e2, he pins this queen, and he wants to exchange two rooks for a queen. And then he will have a queen and a knight against two rooks, which probably should be enough to at least have some advantage, right? No. Rook g1. Rook g1 is a brutal cold shower. And the problem here is that there is one move to hold the balance, but it's impossible to see in blitz, even if you are a GM. The only move to hold the balance here is knight g5. Sacrificing the knight. And then you will take the queen, and you will have a queen against two rooks, and you have some perpetual checks, probably. Even though still white is better after rook h6, king g7, b takes c7, now white wants to make a queen, and there are crazy lines after this, I will not show you them. So knight g5 is the only move that does not lose. Instead, awonder takes the pawn on b6, because it's very dangerous, he doesn't want it to promote. And there is no checkmate threats as of now, because the queen cannot go here because it is pinned. So awonder thinks, okay, what next? And leela does something disgusting here. Leela does give this check, and then leela takes the rook. And when awonder takes the queen, rook g2. And awonder resigns, because the queen is hanging, and once it drops back, rook g7 will be a checkmate. And even though white has two rooks for a queen and a knight, and a couple of pawns, so materially black is fine, but black cannot defend against this checkmate without giving up the queen. This is tragic, and this is how the match went. I will not show you all games. There was just one game that awonder managed to win, which is, I think, a remarkable achievement against such a strong engine. So he got one win in rapid, he got 3 draws in rapid, and then in the blitz format, he lost 6 games and made 4 draws, which is 4 more draws than I would have made against this engine. So again, big respect to Grandmaster Liang, but this was a massacre. And after this, I think I should also try playing against this engine, get crushed several times, and probably I'll make a stream and I'll make some videos on how I play against it, maybe with longer time controls, because with longer time controls, I think I stand some chance. Or maybe I'll play with it with rook odds, because there is a similar engine that plays strong players with rook odds, and it crushes like masters left and right. This is crazy stuff. Okay, thank you for watching, guys. Drop a comment if you like this, and see you next one.